Welcome to the Sooners 360 Recruiting Podcast, a podcast for OU recruiting fans by Sooners 360. Each week we catch you up on the latest in OU recruiting news and provide opinions and evaluations on all things OU football recruiting. I'm Chris Mason, lead recruiting analyst for Sooners 360. This podcast is now sponsored by Sooners 360 on Patreon. To support this podcast, please go to patreon.com/Sooners360817 and click subscribe. It's only $2 a month, and there's also a free 7-day trial option. And that's where I'm posting all of my regular recruiting content. That link will also be in the show notes. Also, this podcast is now part of the Believe podcast family, every team, every topic, everywhere. And also, I'm appearing with the Horns Down podcast, Chris Griffin, and the Hall of Fame podcast with Jason Watkins. We're doing 3 shows a week. Monday nights, I'm doing a recruiting Q&A with Chris Griffin. That's at 8 p.m. Central. So if you ever want to ask me recruiting questions, best way to find out about that is to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube in the search box, type in Sooners 360 and click subscribe. And you'll be notified about those live events as they happen. And you can join the live event and ask me recruiting questions. But also on Thursday, I'm appearing with Chris Griffin and Jason on Thursday nights at 8 p.m. Central. We're doing preview shows of the coming weekend. And then on Saturday or Sunday morning, depending upon when OU plays, we're also going to do a recap show and talk a little bit about what just happened. So several chances for you to see me talk about OU. 2 chances a week to catch recruiting information. Monday nights on a live pod, on a live stream, which is also available for replay on YouTube. And Wednesday nights, I'm recording the regular recruiting pod, which I'll put on their podcast platforms of choice. You'll find it on your regular podcast platforms, and you will find it also on YouTube. All right, that's 2 minutes of all of my intro stuff. You guys want to talk recruiting, so let's talk recruiting. This is episode 144, Ole Miss visitors and a 2027 QB. So there's no commitments to talk about. OU hasn't really lost anybody, but no commitments have occurred. We will get to the business about next week where we could have some news. We'll get to that a little bit later. So the first thing, I've been kind of harping on the issue of the 2027 QB recruiting situation. OU lost Peyton Houston. The only other guy that really had an offer was Trey Taylor, who didn't really consider OU and is locked in with Nebraska and Matt Rule. I guess that could change if Matt Rule takes the Penn State job. Although after watching Nebraska get kicked around by PJ Fleck's Canoe, I don't know why Penn State would hire him, but whatever. I'm sure there's a rationale for that, but. Even if Trey did open his recruiting back up, if Rule made that decision, I don't think OU would really get back involved there. So that has left us without a name. So Twitter broke. We finally have a name to talk about. At least one guy seems to be somewhat in play. So it is Dane Weber from Temecula, California. He plays for Chaparral High School. He's listed anywhere from about 6'1", 6'2", somewhere in the 200 to 210 range. He has posted his mid-year junior film. It's very impressive. He has a very easy throwing motion, good deep ball accuracy. He's very mobile, but still looking downfield to make the big play with his arm. Josh McCuistion threw a Baker comp. I think there's a little, I kind of see the sort of the Mateer Bentley kind of, comp to his game maybe a little bit, but he's ranked in the top, he's ranked as the number 2 quarterback for California for 2027, ranked somewhere in the top 200 to top 300 in the country. I could easily see him, he's having a really good junior year. I could really see him through the camp process and through some other things, maybe moving up much higher for 2027. So he's visiting several campuses, but he will be on OU's campus for the Mizzou game. And since he's flying in and OU's very interested in him, and Stacey Ford has a lot of California connections, So he's probably got some insider information on him too, in terms of his makeup, personality, work habits, stuff like that. He just knows a lot of coaches in the area. I would be surprised if OU doesn't make an offer. So far for his junior year, he's completing passes at a 74% rate. He has 1,700 yards passing, 19 TDs. He's also rushed for 300 yards. He's had another 6 TDs on the ground. I'm not sure if these stats are combined in this, but his most recent game that he just played, he was 20 for 22, which would be somewhere in the 92% accuracy rate, something like that. Yeah, something like that, 92%, something like that. For 339 yards, 4 TDs. He also had 100 yards rushing and posted another 2 TDs, including, I think, in that 101 yards rushing is like a 61 or 66-yard touchdown play. So really like his film. This seems to be somebody who would be a good offer for OU to make for 2027. We'll see what happens, but that's the biggest story in terms of the quarterback situation for 2027, because OU's doing well in 2027 otherwise, but getting a quarterback in the fold would be a big addition. All right, so the last time I talked to you guys on Wednesday, Napier wasn't fired. He's now fired. So we can now move from, well, if and what, would these guys be available and would OU make any moves on them? So we can move from that. He's gone. For the most part, the recruits seem to be rallying and saying, oh, we're going to stick with UF. I'll mention one name that doesn't appear to be following that too much, but they're singing that song right now. So KJ Ford's already talked about taking a trip to USC, and I think he could flip there pretty quickly. OU showing not a lot of interest in getting back in that race. I think they like the 3 defensive ends where they are. They like their defensive end depth. So I don't see them doing anything there. They've got defensive end targets for 2027. So I don't think a 4th defensive end is really in their plans for this class. I could change, but that's where we are right now. Davion Gross is there's no real noise there, really. He's not giving too many interviews. He's hard to get hold of. Multiple sites, both 247, Rivals Sooner Scoop, and Rivals OU Insider, and Rivals OU Insider. I guess that's the proper term for both of them under the On3 umbrella. They're both indicating that they don't see any movement there towards OU right now. Desmond Green is probably the number one guy I hope does open things back up. OU really needs another offensive lineman in this class. They only have 2. Maybe they'll get to 3, and we'll talk about that in a minute to bury some info. But I'd love for them to get to 4, and I'd love for them to get to 5. I think 5 high school offensive linemen with OU's luck and injury luck damaging the development of offensive line kids. I think you got to sign 5 every year just to try and make sure in 3 years, you have 3 guys that are 3rd-year veteran players to help. That you're going to have some attrition there. You may lose 2, but you need to have 3 guys to be in the 2 deep. So no news on Desmond Green. Now, the one guy where he is giving interviews and he has talked about OU kind of pushing is Caden Hall, the big safety from Florida that OU really, really likes. And he still has an official visit that he could use. So I could see OU pushing heavily. If they can get a night game from Missouri or even maybe LSU, that they try and push and see if they can get Caden Hall on campus. I think another safety in this class would be ideal. So that's the UF situation. Now, Penn State obviously is hemorrhaging verbal commitments. Kids are starting to make visits and plans. Doesn't look like OU's interested in Tavion Bryant, but don't be surprised if OU starts to try and make some noise. There's a couple of offensive line guys that are decommitting, and I don't be surprised if OU doesn't perhaps try and make a move there. Penn State's done a really good job in developing and identifying and evaluating talent, other than a quarterback. So OU may pay attention. It'll be hard because some of these kids in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Ohio, just not an area OU really recruits that heavily. But keep an eye out there. No sign that Jaden Pettit has come to his senses and decommitted from Wisconsin. Maybe that bag is just too much. And it looks like Wisconsin is going to double down on NIL and keep Luke Fickell. That's a mind-boggling decision to me because I don't think they've won more than 2 games. And I don't think they're going to win another game the rest of the year. They're going 2-10. And there are no signs at all that Fickell has this moving in the right direction. No signs that he has any idea what he's doing at quarterback. And in terms of evaluating, recruiting, or developing a quarterback, and they're lost. I don't get that at all. I think it's time to realize that wasn't a good pick, that wasn't a good situation, and kind of move on. Auburn, that's a good question. Seems like Hugh Freeze is about to bench Jackson Arnold. He talked in his press conference about playing Ashton Daniels. Maybe that can help Auburn pick up that. I mean, their schedule at the end isn't daunting. Obviously, they've got an Alabama game, and they've got a reasonably tough game this weekend. But it's not daunting. They've got a couple of games they maybe should be able to win. They still have an out-of-conference cupcake game that'll give them another win. So I don't know, but if they drop the game this weekend, that's 5 losses in a row. I have a hard time believing that Hugh is going to survive that. That would create we know Auburn has talent on their roster. So that would create a portal frenzy. It's going to be a little bit with UF. Don't think there's not. Those kids can enter I believe those kids can enter the portal once it becomes available for everybody else in January. They can't. It used to be when your coach was fired, you could enter the portal. They've changed that rule. You can't enter the portal until the new coach is hired, 5 days until after the new coach is hired. But I don't think that. And most of these schools will have new coaches hired by the time the portal officially opens in January. But Auburn would be it'll be a free-for-all talent-wise. And their recruiting class is pretty talented. They have a talented safety, Braylon Womack, who everybody would go after if he put himself back on the market. But there'll be other players as well. So that's something to watch. OU could, if I was OU, would I sit back with maybe 2 or 3 open 2026 ships and see what happens with the Auburn situation and see and continue working Florida and see what else happens? Yeah, probably. Portal-wise, it could get real interesting. I mean, if names like Cam Coleman, Dallas Wilson, DJ Lagway, the McCrary defensive line kid from Florida, if these guys started hitting the portal, the two wide receivers alone would create a pretty heavy feeding frenzy in the portal. I'm not sure OU would want any part of that, but it would, it always have a trickle down effect in terms of, the more talent is in the portal, the more money gets distributed between different schools, and the more talent trickles down to maybe a dollar number that OU is more comfortable with. We'll see. We don't. It's going to be a new territory for us in December, reporting on the portal on this show, because we do recruiting and portal reporting. We've never seen Jim Nagy with that January portal. We don't know how aggressive he's going to be. We don't know what OU's roster needs exactly are right now. We have a pretty good idea about a couple of spots, but so it's going to be interesting to see what does Jim Nagy's January January portal strategy going to be? The spring was good in some ways, bad in others. The odd thing is looking like a disaster, but the kicker situation, Sandell and McAuliffe look like hits. So we'll see which way Jim is going to. We'll say it's going to be a new thing to track. We can't go based upon what OU did in the past because we have a new GM for the first time, sorting, and a new scouting and evaluation staff that'll be handling the January portal. So we can't necessarily go on what OU's done in the past is the big point there. There's one name who hasn't visited officially who's still out there. It's Milan Paris, the 6'5", 200-pound wide receiver from Ohio. Oregon and Miami is still in play. I think OU's in a good spot, but has to basically sit back and let these visits happen. Miami is probably the biggest competition. So we'll see how that shakes out. I do know he had a good visit to Norman, and my sources say that they like where OU stood. OU liked where they stood after the visit. So that's as positive as was really going to get. So let's talk about official visitors for Ole Miss. There's two players. One name we've been talking about for a while, one name that just popped up last week. So the first name is Daniel McMorris, the offensive tackle from Norman North. This is his last visit before he decides on Halloween. He'll be on OU's campus again for his official visit. He's 6'5", 265. He's a very good athlete. He needs to add weight, and he's very raw O-line wise. I've had some people who've seen him play who felt like that, there's a lot of work that OU's got to do there. So we'll see how that goes. I like where there's a ceiling for Daniel if he can do the work and do the development work physically to put on the weight. He's got a big frame to hold it. And if he's willing to do that grind to get better technique-wise at O-line, is he willing and is OU going to be willing to recognize that he'll need a redshirt year? He needs to enroll early, hit things. He doesn't, he needs to hit it early, enroll, go through probably a redshirt year, and then another freshman year where he's just working to get on the field. And is OU willing to, is everything sync up that OU's able to let him do that? But development-wise, we want to pretend that these kids develop at the same rates, and they just don't. You look at Taylor Wine, who went through a redshirt year, didn't play much his freshman redshirt year, and now is blown up as a sophomore, to a much higher degree than I think anybody, even in the most optimistic projections, anticipated. Obviously, being around all the veterans and the other D-line guys helps, but he's still playing great football. So you just don't know where that development curve will go. But he should be on campus. He's a 3-star by the services. He's probably going to stay there. His senior year film is good, but it's not something that's going to push him into the 4-star range. The other guy is a Penn State decommit. His Josiah Rogers from Delaware. He's 5'11", 6 foot, 175, 180 pounds. I'm being told he has a laser 4.3 time from a camp this summer. And his film, it certainly looks like that. I mean, the Delaware competition's not great, but he's just flying by kids left and right. Bama and Nebraska are visits coming up after OU. Other schools are probably trying to jockey into position and get a visit. He, at the slot, that speed receiver, take the top off the defense. He looks like a pretty damn good prospect. It wouldn't surprise me if he's not top 200 consensus by the time everything shakes out with the rankings. So about a couple hours ago, we got a new prediction for OU. It is a 2027 player. It is Gabriel Osborne from Mustang, Oklahoma. He's 6'2", 180 pounds, 185 pounds. Plays cornerback, safety. He could probably even play wide receiver. He's that talented an athlete. He's now ranked as a 4-star by Rivals. He's a top 100 player on 247. And I think he could easily be a top 75, top 100 player after this season is over and everybody looks at his film. I mean, he's a fantastic looking athlete. Now, the person who submitted this was Brandon Drum from OU Insider. Some folks think that he don't think his predictions are a little off, but he lives in the Mustang area. So he's at most of Gabriel's games every day. Every week. His kid, I think, is like a junior high school kid and plays in that area. So Drum's pretty tight with this guy. So I think this is, if Osborne is on campus this weekend, I think we could see something happen on this prediction. But either way, he's a big-time athlete. This would be a significant pickup. The 2027 class is loaded, but Osborne is somewhere probably in the top 5, only trailing Caden Penny, Cooper Hackett, Case Alexander. Samaj Stanford probably should be in there, although Rivals just re-ranked him and dropped him into a 3-star category, so I don't know what they're doing there. Titus Hawk is definitely somewhere probably in the top 5 if he continues to add weight to that athletic frame. Ben Kolar somewhere in that range too. Colton McComb probably somewhere in that range too as well. So Osborne's right there, I think, in the top 5 in state, behind 2 guys with 5-star ratings. As I said, Case Alexander is going to be a consensus top 150, maybe higher if he adds some more, depending upon if he goes to some camps and flashes. He's a very talented athlete. So Osborne being right in that group is a high ranking. So let's talk unofficial visitors to OU this weekend. This list is far from complete, but has some names that have been posted on social media. We'll probably see some more names. I imagine 5 to 6, maybe as many as 10 of OU's 2026 verbals will be on campus. I know Bo Bentley will be. The 2027 kids, I think you probably would see Cooper Hackett back. You'll probably see from 2028, Damian Compton-Nero. He seems to be going to every OU game. But here's some names, some new names, and some names we haven't really talked about that much. So the first name is Crew Jones, defensive end from Utah, 6'5", 230. He's ranked as high as the top 40 on ESPN. He's just an excellent defensive end, pass rusher. This is his first visit to OU since Steve Wiltfong put in a prediction for him to OU. So I'm not saying anything would happen this weekend, but wouldn't shock me if something happened a couple of weeks after this visit. Then we have Michael Davis, a cornerback from Arizona. He's a 4-star on Rivals. Cornerback, nickelback, 6 foot, 170 pounds. Then we have Bode Sparrow, 2027 player from Utah, safety, wide receiver, top 100 on Rivals, top 100 on 247. His film is really good. For last year as a sophomore, he had nearly 1,000 yards receiving, 994 yards receiving, 16 touchdowns, and he had 9 interceptions. So OU wants him at safety. He's 6'3", 190, and just fits the perfect mold of a Brandon Hall safety. A lot of competition for him, but OU gets to put their foot forward right now. Then we have UT verbal Tevin Epps, who's an outside linebacker, edge rusher from Tustin, California. He's top 100 for 2027. I just watched his film today. It's an interesting film. He's very talented. He looks really good in space, and he's also really good rushing the quarterback. So think about Kendall Daniels, and think about Kendall Daniels with established pass rushing skills. That might be the mold. A couple of interviews that have been floating around, one from 247 where Micah Parsons as a comp was thrown out. I don't think that's the worst one. He's 6'4", 220. Might be a little bigger than that now, but that's what's listed. Not sure. He's visiting a lot of schools, so the UT verbal seems weak right now. I'd love for OU to get involved with this kid. So a new name to track is Trey Stewart from Arkansas. Athlete, running back, maybe wide receiver. Again, folks are starting to post their junior mid-year films, which I really love. It's pretty impressive. He's flashing power, speed, and acceleration. He's kind of running through trash, then accelerating to top speed and running past folks. He's a 3-star right now. He's probably underevaluated based upon that film. And then to go back to California, Jackson Stokes is visiting. He's from Chatsworth, California. He's a high 3-star, 5'9", 5'8", 190, 180, somewhere in that range. Got a couple of different measurements for him. His film does not sync up with that ranking. He's flying past folks. He looks incredibly explosive with home run speed. Hard to find, hard to tackle, and just blowing through the line. I think he probably should be closer to top 300 4-star range. But 2027 is still very much a moving target from a ranking standpoint. Rivals is dropping guys they didn't rank before into their top 50, top 100 out of nowhere. 247 is still shaking through what they're doing. And ESPN, who knows what I don't think they've even put out. Their 2027 rankings are so out of date and haven't been expanded that a lot of kids are just unranked based on that. For 2028, we have 2 interesting running backs on campus. Micah Rhodes should be back on campus again. He's maybe the number 1 running back for 2028. He's Houston Guillory's teammate. 5'10", 190. Just had a huge 5-touchdown game. He's back on campus again. Seems very connected to DeMarco. Derek Blaylock posted something about how much DeMarco is coaching up his son, Torrey. And Micah reposted that and liked that post. So seems pretty interested in what's going on with the Sooners. Then we have Josiah Dickinson from Washington, Oklahoma, via Ghana, Africa. The OU coaches were at a couple of games last week. They used a helicopter to hop around. One of the places they were at was Washington, Oklahoma, watching Case Alexander, the 2027 elite linebacker. And while they're there, they got to see Dickerson rush for 232 yards on 29 touches. So OU wants him on campus, wants to evaluate him. He's a smaller back, 5'8", maybe 180. So we'll see where OU goes. They've got good 2028 offers to Micah Rhodes, for instance, a couple other guys. We'll see their level of interest in Washington, but he's definitely a player. He's going to end up with some power. He's going to end up with college offers. He's too good a looking running back for that not to happen. In terms of new offers, pretty light this week. The only name I've got for you guys is a defensive tackle from Thomasville, Georgia. Relatively sure that's in the southern part of the state. His name is Prince Che, C-H-E. Defensive tackle, 6'3", 275 for 2028. Watch his film. It's pretty good. Easy to see why OU offered. And that's it. We've got more names probably coming for Ole Miss, which we'll talk about next week. I'll talk about on Monday on the recruiting Q&A if you want to find it. Again, for the recruiting Q&A, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Easiest way to be notified. Easiest way to jump in and be able to ask me questions about players and what's going on. We do have a Halloween commitment from Daniel McMorris. Don't have a time yet for that, but keep an eye out for that because that's obviously creeping up. That's obviously next Thursday. Next Friday. It's already Thursday, Eastern time. So thanks for listening. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast on your audio platform of choice. Subscribing in YouTube helps me greatly. You also have access and also notification to the other content we're doing. Also, please visit patreon.com/Sooners360817 to subscribe for more recruiting content. That Patreon site keeps this podcast free. If you enjoy this podcast on whatever platform you enjoy it on, just know the Patreon site helps me keep it running. So I'd appreciate you guys giving the free trials a trial. Other than that, we will be back next Wednesday with a recruiting podcast for you guys to enjoy Thursday morning.